Boy, has it been a very interesting 48 hours. So as we all know, the Super League has been disbanded, for now at least. Florentino did say he was going to change up a few things in the model of the Super League. So probably in 2022, you'll be seeing him appealing more to the 16 to 24-year-old range and have TikTok dances, mandatory TikTok dances, before 20-minute half matches. Social media, especially football Twitter, went absolutely wild. I honestly think I could compare what I saw with football Twitter with the insurrection, where you just basically saw information being thrown out on social media each and every single second of the day. You didn't know what was going to happen next. It was crazy. It was like being a part of a Netflix show. You saw the hopelessness, which was mainly the announcement of the Super League, and then, you know, your favorite clubs tweeting about joining the Super League. But then you had your hopeful moments, and that hopefulness never actually ended, because it was Chelsea announcing a withdrawal, then Man City announcing a withdrawal, then Ed Woodward, Rip Bozo leaving the sport itself. I mean, it was lovely to see. And I actually did a stream on this, so shout out to any of the people who joined that any time of the day, because it was absolutely wild and I wasn't expecting it. But then later on after the stream, I saw news about how all the big six clubs in England had left the Super League, and then I saw Arsenal tweet about it. The headline to the apology on their tweet is quite funny. But yeah, it was just an absolute emotional roller coaster, but at the end of the day, right, the fans won. The fans won. We proved that greed never wins. These American owners, and you know, I just, on my regards, on my behalf, I'm very sorry. I am very sorry that these people exist. I'm sorry that they had to come from our country. But these Americans, right, they lost. And it was beautiful to see. We saw protests happening. People weren't happy. Analysts weren't happy. Footballers were speaking out about this. It was a beautiful sight to see, and seeing the downfall of it made it even sweeter. This is a big win for us, a big win. And it just goes to show that we fans have a lot more power than those higher ups think we do. Now, like I said before, this whole fight against the elites of Europe is not over. There are still plenty of things we need to work on. FIFA are not saints. They helped us in this situation. We backed them. But now we need to remember what they've done. They've f***ed over Brazil multiple times. You remember the FIFA laws that allowed alcohol in stadiums when Brazil literally said that's not f***ing allowed? And then, of course, the time that, you know, FIFA just reaped Brazil's benefits and have left them just in complete economic turmoil. Oh, and also South Africa as well. Oh, and then, of course, you know, the bids for a World Cup in Qatar that were obviously not corrupt whatsoever. And then, of course, let's talk about UEFA for a second with their Swiss model. Now, I did a whole video on this. It'll be linked up in the thingies or whatever, so you can watch it in more detail. So I'll give you a quick little summarization. The higher up clubs, the elites, are pushing for much more shares of the revenue than before. So in a way, it's just a long-term vision of a Super League in itself. There's supposed to be more high-profile matches, which you'd expect to maybe level out the playing field, but in actuality, it'll just go to all the bigger clubs because, like I said before, they're only going for the bigger shares. And then, of course, there's the extra slots. One goes to Liga, one goes to a domestic champion, so at least they changed up one of the slots, but there's still two that go to clubs that underperformed previously in the other season and can just enter into the Champions League, ending up f***ing over another club either in their own domestic league or in a completely different country. So like I said before, we need to push this same energy, and I know it's not going to be the case because I know how f***ing social media works, right? You won't see people act until they're really threatened. And that's what happened with the Super League. People realized right then and there that the Super League was going to kill off the sport. But not as many people know about that Swiss model, and we need to educate people on that situation. Otherwise, we will be seeing the same vision of a Super League in just a few years later. For now, I just wanted to give my opinions on the aftermath of this situation and how I feel like this should play out. Let's talk about all the 12 clubs that were a part of this. I personally think they should be docked points and even relegated. Honestly, I would be fine with them being relegated. I know there's this argument the leagues could lose a ton of money, but I do believe in the idea of short-term loss, long-term gain. And in terms of the points docked, I don't really get this hesitancy to actually dock points to these clubs, because you see clubs lower in the pyramid getting docked points because of administration, and then, you know, let's talk about the big six who could have basically caused a lot of clubs to go into administration because of this Super League. Why aren't they being docked points? It's practically the same thing, but at a higher magnitude. So why aren't they being docked points? I feel like fines And also transfer bans should be like certain in this conversation as well. I don't see why they wouldn't. And then also I want to see the removal of the higher ups. I know that's not gonna happen. I know it's just me dreaming big, but listen, it needs to happen. We saw these owners take advantage of the pandemic. They knew no one was going to be in their way, so they went on with the Super League stuff. They did it behind staff's backs, they did it behind players' backs, and because of that, they need to be removed. They need to be completely banished from this sport. I know that's not going to happen, but you can dream big, you know? And then one more point, the ECA. But I want to see none of the clubs that left the ECA to come back. I feel like that's pretty just. You leave, you don't get to come back. It's simple. I mean, these are the clubs that were pushing for high amounts of the revenue. And I get it, right? The PSG owner is now actually the president of the ECA. So will anything change? God knows. We're going to have to see that develop over time. But I do not want to see a single club that left that organization to come back at all. Now, let me just kind of give you a perspective of mine when it came to reacting to the club that I support joining the Super League. You know, the club that I've supported for about more than a decade now, just betraying me like that. Now, I know the owner didn't care about me that much. I'm pretty used to it being a Nuggets fan as well, because the same guy owns us as well. I mean, he leaves his wife to do the business because he's just the most passive motherfucker on the face of the earth, but either way, he still owns us. But man, seeing our club being on that list was one of the most embarrassing moments as an Arsenal supporter. Absolutely embarrassing. I was pissed off, I was saddened, and most importantly, I just felt betrayed. I mean, let's just talk, right? About Stan Kroenke as a human being. Man's not f***ing human. Man's a demon being sent to the human world. The man's name is literally Silent Stan, because all he does is buy shit and just leave all his little goons to do the work. Let me tell you about the multiple different things little scumbag Stan has done. He has screwed over an entire city in St. Louis and moved the Rams to LA. There's one. Then let's go a little bit further up, right? Or actually further down towards hell. Let's talk about the time, right, that he removed public access to Canadian lakes, to 2 of them as well. He won against 2 non-profit, like, nature organizations. For what reason? I don't know. The man's not f***ing human. And then let's bring it down even worse. The man himself a few years ago had bought this massive portion of land in Texas, and actually had his company evict some of the people. Never really, you know, financially supported them anyway, anyhow, right? He just said, oh, well, you know, we'll just evict these guys. And there was one man who was not actually able to afford to, you know, live somewhere else. So what happened? This man is a scumbag. An absolute fucking scumbag. You think Joel Glazer's bad, man? Listen, at least Joel Glazer might have a little bit of human in him in comparison to fucking Kroenke. Let's also talk about that time during the NBA playoffs in 2009 when Stan Kroenke had a WWE event and an NBA playoff game on the same night, because he actually didn't expect the Nuggets, who were favorites at the time, to win the whole thing, to actually reach that point of the playoffs. And when Vince McMahon, right, tells you that you are not a good businessman, from the same man who once scripted himself saying the N-word on national television, and he's telling you you aren't a good businessman, man, I don't know, maybe at that point in my life, I'd be just reevaluating everything. So yeah, that's the follow-up for the Super League video. I just kind of wanted to give my perspective on how I felt during the whole situation. And then also, of course, give you guys the info that this war is not over. We have plenty of other battles, and now we need to focus on that UEFA Swiss model, because like I said before, it is just a long-term vision of a Super League, and we need to put an end to it before it gets any worse in these coming years. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little tirade that I had, especially with Stan Kroenke. That got a little emotional, but be sure to follow my Twitter, my Twitch, my Instagram, and my TikTok, and I will see you guys at some point.